We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the Friday edition. I guess I'm only doing one edition now a week for Free Association Radio. That might change. This is the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. I'll be here for the next 2 hours. In hour number 2, we're going to have the producers of Do You Shift on the show. We're going to talk about shape-shifting, and they've got a benefit coming up for the film. It's like a lot of movies these days, they're looking to crowdfund and basically finance their movie through social networks, social media, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is the new model for being able to support people or support ideas that are important to the individual. I mean, think about it. We don't have a say in where our tax dollars go. It just comes right out of our checks and goes right into the skies or some other country. But we do have a say where we can put our discretionary income, and I thoroughly advise people to support crowdfunding, worthy causes of crowdfunding, whether it's a book or a movie or a video or a DVD or a restaurant or whatever that thing is. It's the best way that we can support one another. And I think it's interesting that it came out during Pluto and Capricorn, because in Pluto and Capricorn, what did we see happen? Right out of the gate, we saw the collapse of our financial institutions. Many people don't know that, but essentially what happened in October 2008, a precursor in the shadow of Pluto and Capricorn, which happened right after the first of the year in 2009, is that the financial system absolutely, utterly collapsed. The bottom had fallen out, and then the bailout took place. And the bailout was billions and billions of dollars to save and support companies that had been playing fast and loose with toxic derivatives. And the toxic derivatives were debts. They were debts that were incurred in the housing crisis. And it was bad paper. And it wasn't just the bad paper, it was the bet against the bad paper. And all that stuff just got absorbed. It was like taking a cancer pill. And the body politique, the corporal body, the financial body died. And so what we had is we had the resurrection of the financial system. Some might say we might have even had the resurrection of Mr. Paulson, who theoretically had been shot and killed. There are pictures on the internet, by the way. If you look at his hand, he looks like a hologram. So we had the Paulson and Bernanke show, the resurrection of the economy, but it's dead. It's all smoke and mirrors. Whatever last underpinnings it was on, it was dead. They got knocked out from underneath it in 2009. And so what people have had to do is, and if you look at what's happened in the wake of the collapse of the banking and the financial system, and it did, we're living in a post-economy now, people wound up losing more jobs. There was a massive, and I mean a massive, effort to begin to put people into 20, 25, if they were lucky, 30-hour-a-week positions. If you weren't cut, you were downsized, and when you were downsized, you lost your main support for your income. You might have even lost some of your benefits. Maybe you had to pay half your benefits now because you had 25 to 30 hours per week. It wasn't just the fact that people lost jobs. There was restructuring that was going on, and people lost wealth during that period of time. So not too long after that, we had the rise of crowdfunding, indie sourcing. And so people began to create their own financial networks or their own sources for funding and rewarding people that they thought were worthy. So that's where we are now, and I think it's a great model. And if you are invested in somebody or something that gets your voice heard or something you'd like to see, then by all means donate $5, $10, $15, $20, whenever you can to a crowdfunding source. It would be great if all crowdfunding sources were nonprofits. Unfortunately, they're not. So your donation is not tax deductible. But in some cases it might be, depending upon who it is that is doing the crowdfunding. Do you think, this is an open question now, do you think that churches should have tax-exempt status? I don't. I do not. Now, there are some churches, I'm sure, if you drive from Austin to Houston, you'll see some churches on the side of the road. They could use a little tax-exempt status. Trust me on that. These are very humble churches. But then there are other churches, temples, synagogues, that have massive amounts of wealth, and they are not taxed. I mean massive. We're talking the mega churches or the extremely wealthy synagogues or some of the temples that are just oozing with cash. And they do not pay any taxes whatsoever. I think that there should be a ceiling, and that if you get X amount of donations per year, you're taxed. That's one man's humble opinion. Tax them all. Tax them all. See what happens. If the Church of Satan or the Satanic Temple is a church, tax them too. Make it fair for everyone, right? Anyway, the producers of the independent film Do You Shift will be on in the second hour, and we'll discuss shape-shifting. Has anybody ever run across a shapeshifter? Has anybody shape-shifted? Have you ever become another species? I don't think I have in this lifetime. Now, there are other types of shape-shifting. Perhaps they're not so dramatic. We are in the sign of Gemini, where people have dual identities or two aspects to their persona. So perhaps there is some shape-shifting that takes place on a personal level, on a psychic level, on a psychological level, that you can see a person shift into something else. I've seen that. I think people have noticed that in me, for better or worse, where the face actually becomes kind of a different face. Sometimes it's precipitated by anger, or sometimes it is just a like a cloud passing across the countenance of the individual. So I think that that shapeshifting isn't just solely about becoming another species. It could actually be about shifting your psychic shape or your psychic energy so that you appear to be somebody different. Now, I did have a friend, a very close friend, tell me that one time that I did something that was kind of remarkable, even though I wasn't quite aware of it. We were on some, well, you know, the psilocybin kind of stuff, right? You know what I'm talking about? You got to be careful when you talk about these things, because I've heard, by the way, that if you publicly state that you have taken LSD, you can actually be tried for that, believe it or not. So we have to be careful with what we share along these lines. So I'm telling you about a time in my life where I had some of the dried mushroom variety, and I was at a big event, a corporate party with techno and all kinds of craziness that used to happen back in the 90s in the Bay Area when things were fun. And so I'm at this event, and I'm with my friend, and we are beginning to feel the magic, as they say. And he turns around and looks at me, and apparently we're walking through the crowd, turned around, looked at me, and I wasn't there. I wasn't there. That I had somehow kind of vanished for a moment. Now, one could say that maybe his perception vanished and I was there, or maybe I wasn't there, because I was actually conscious of when that happened, and I felt very detached. Let's put it that way, detached. And the interesting thing was, talk about shape-shifting. I'd forgotten about this. When we sat down, we got outside, we sat down, and I looked at him. He had very thin hair, receding, and it was slightly long, about down to his neck. And he had these ears that looked like he was a mule. A mule. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this guy has got some strange kind of nature pan kind of thing going on. And he looked incredibly sad. And I thought to myself, this is a guy that's been trapped in a human body, but he's actually more of like a satyr or a kind of a nature spirit with incredible sadness. It was pretty interesting, to be honest. And so I think he did shapeshift that night. He shapeshifted into some other form, some slightly primordial. It wouldn't be primordial. I would say it would be more satyr-like, from the nature realm. I had another experience one time. Now, this is a trippy experience. I guess I'm telling stories today while we wait for a guest. I do want to talk about some other stuff, though, but I do want to share this story with you. I wonder how much I could share. It's a crazy story. All right, I'll tell you. A long time ago, again, another life, back in the Bay Area, I was part of a psychedelic research group where we did a number of things in a setting that was controlled with music, and there was a shaman there running the whole thing, right? And I only did this a couple times because I got such a creepy feeling from the shaman. I might have actually shared some of this story before, but the first time I did it, I was, and it was kind of mind-blowing, to be honest with you. And there were a number of things that we did during the course of the 7 or 8 hours that we were engaged in this group mind meld with blindfolds on, eye patches. And there was a guy there from Brazil who didn't get as much out of the experience as he would have liked to, because one of the things that he did is he did not fully participate in the 8-hour ritual, which included the ingestion of one of the things that I talked about that can get you in trouble if you talk about it. He kind of messed around with it and fumbled it. The whole thing is kind of creepy, actually, because you're there and you're already in an altered state, and you've got the blindfolds on, and you hear a voice that says, "Open your mouth, please." And you're like, "What? Open your mouth, please." And in pops these little things. Right? Mr. Leary's medicine. So this guy had that moment, and he kind of fumbled the moment. So then, we eventually come out of this experience, take the blindfolds off, we start talking about what happened to us. He's going on and on about how he didn't get this out of it, that out of it, and the one-eyed shaman who was presiding over all of it says to him, he says, "Pedro, do you want to live or do you want to die? Because right now, you're sitting on the fence of living and dying. You've been there all your life. What do you want to do?" And this guy, of course, is half out of his mind. He doesn't know what to do. He's stuck. He's stuck in between worlds. He's stuck in between his ability to choose. And so the shaman, whose wife was there, helped out, calls out her name. And he says to Pedro, says, "Since you can't choose, I'm going to choose for you." So he calls out his wife's name, and she's already there. And in her hand, she's got a syringe full of ketamine. Some of you might know what ketamine is. And he tells Pedro to roll up his sleeve on his T-shirt, which he does. And he tells him that he's going to make the choice for him, and that he's going to give him a shot of ketamine, and it's not going to last long, but it'll push him through. He'll break through. And so she injects him with this ketamine. And here's the shape-shifting part. He started breathing heavily. I mean, really heavily. And then all of a sudden, I saw him travel back into his DNA about 40,000 years. And he became this proto-human. I swear to God. And then he lets out this blood-curdling, primal scream that just sent shivers down my spine. I felt like I was time traveling back to the dawn of man, right? This guy became a proto-human right before my very eyes. And then he collapsed in a heap and started sobbing. Then he started speaking in Portuguese, because he was Brazilian, and the one-eyed shaman could speak Spanish. So he's listening to him, and we asked him what he was saying, and the one-eyed shaman said, "Oh, he's basically telling me that I'm God." I'm like, whoa, that's a heavy trip. You know what I'm saying? That was a very heavy trip. And then he came crawling over on all fours and started hugging the one-eyed shaman's ankle, weeping, sobbing. And I said to myself, if you ask me if I got what I got out of this thing, I'm saying absolutely. I got plenty. I got a lot more than I bargained for. Well, the one-eyed shaman, eventually, it all came tumbling down upon him, because that's what happens to one-eyed shamans. He had to deal with corruption, power. That's what happens. That's what happens to people when they get power. Never fails. I was sent an email from a friend of mine, good friend, and it was a post about a singer by the name of Sia Furler, who sings for the group, or sang for the group. What was the name of that band? Oh boy, I can't remember the name of her band. But she sang on the soundtrack for 6 Feet Under and had some hits on her own. Really wonderful singer. She's the daughter of the sax player from Men at Work. And I was at a club one night in L.A., and she was there hanging out, and she was cool. I mean, I talked to her, nice person, very approachable. She was a singer for a band called 07. Some of you might know them. First 07 record's great. And she just came out with a tweet basically saying that she is done. She'll sing, but she is done. She's not going to be performing live anymore. She's been seen with a bag over her head. I mean, this is kind of similar in some ways to like Shia LaBeouf, right, who was wearing a bag over his head. And one of her tweets said, "Fame is the worst thing that could happen to any person." Well, she also happens to have Graves' disease, or Graves'. It's an autoimmune disorder, one of the lovely autoimmune disorders that we have been subjected to, and through vaccines, and chemtrails, and all kinds of other goodies. By the way, speaking of chemtrails, if you haven't listened to last week's show, I heartily recommend it. It was a really terrific show. Absolutely terrific show. Alexandra May Hunter was just on fire. And you can learn a lot about chemtrails. Speaking of chemtrails, Saturday, my baseball team is playing, and they are spraying up a storm. They're marking X's. They're marking X's right over the baseball field. I could not help but think that was personal. That was personal. It's like, screw you, Robert Phoenix. We are going to chemtrail your game, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? It was personal. About an hour into the game, I was totally spaced out. My kids were tired. They were grumpy. They didn't want to, they weren't fully into it. It was mind, emotional, mood control at its finest, or worse, depending on how you look at it. I was spaced out the rest of the day. Totally spaced out the rest of the day. Could barely drive. And our team lost. To add insult to injury. Well, we played the next day, no chemtrails. Came back, and we actually almost beat the number 1 seed. Almost beat the number 1 seed. I got to tell you, though, man, people in Austin and people this part of Austin, small town. Small town, that's all I will say. All I will say. All right, it is 12:24. You are listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. There was a couple things that I did want to get to before we brought our... By the way, sun is in Gemini now, fully. Did you know that they opened the 9/11 Memorial Museum on the 21st at 0 degrees Gemini? The moon was at 0 degrees Pisces, too, so there was a sun-moon square. 0 degrees Gemini, 9 a.m. Twin Towers, duality. It just never stops, does it? Things always get interesting in the month of June. Duality is an issue, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. It is getting worse. One of the things that, and I'm not advocating this, so please try to understand it. One of the things that people have done in the past, and even in the present, is to solve the dilemma of duality, and they have tried to solve this politically. that you wipe out the opposition so that there is only one thought, one voice, one credo, one prime directive. You wipe out the opposition. You wipe out the other. That's one way of dealing with duality. Nazis tried to do it. Communists, they tried to do it in their own way. Different versions, same effect, same result. And what are we looking at? We're looking at the inception of the New World Order, which again would shoot down duality. There wouldn't be a two-party system. There's no two-party system anyway. That's a joke. But it represents duality or our dual nature. And these things are getting split further and further apart. Racism, the whole notion of racism, it's not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can see where this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a much bigger problem than it's ever been. And so here we have duality being exacerbated. And so we have, what are the options? What are the options? The options ultimately are people will split into camps. They'll split into groups. And so we have the duality effect in full effect. So that's happening. And then we have the whole gay marriage, gay rights, straight versus gay, more duality. We have all these splits going on in our society, and they're bigger than ever. The white-black split, the left-right split, the straight-gay split, the male-female split. It's all splitting. And this duality is becoming, again, more, it's a form of traumatization. I used to believe that, we could all rise. We could all rise on a single current of one thought, one love, and rout the rascals while we're doing it. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I don't. I'd like to be wrong. I'd like for humanity to have that moment when you're in the club and the music is really great and the beats are kicking in and everybody is, in that, that sweet kind of collective sway, and we shake our head and we look around. It's the head nod. If you've ever been clubbing, if you've ever been to a rave, there's a moment of the head nod. Yeah, this is it. This is that moment. I would love to have the great collective head nod, where we all look at you and go, yeah. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to get worse. We've got TSA arming themselves. We've got DHS arming themselves, and big, huge. We've got the FDA. The FDA, people. These are the people that, watch over food safety. They're arming themselves. The IRS is already armed. Every single portion of the government that has any kind of significant interaction with the public are going to be armed. The BLM, I'm sure they're already armed. So we are these are dangerous. Dangerous times. These are stressful times. And I think we're headed towards more chaos. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think it's true. More chaos. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all going to go according to plan. I still believe that there are people that are going to show their cards before they do. It's happened already. It's going to happen again. And even when evil reigns, it is like a fire, and it will burn itself out at some point. It will burn itself out at some point. But I see storm clouds on the horizon. I was watching Red Dawn the other night. I just caught the end of it. It's the new version, not the old Milius version. But in the new version, they talk about an EMP pulse, which takes out most of America. And then America is invaded by the Chinese, the Russians, and the North Koreans. Now, if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I would have thought, well, that is absolutely absurd, not going to happen. I see that movie now, and I'm thinking predictive programming 101. Hello? That's what I'm thinking. Like they're laying it out here. And I don't know how many of you have been following this, but they've been talking about EMP pulses in the news lately. One of the best things about moving to Austin has been this mineral water, Topo Chico. If I could do a Topo Chico commercial, I would do it. If I could be a spokesperson for Topo Chico. If anybody out there knows anybody at Topo Chico, let them know that Topo Chico is the official water of the Friday FARcast from Free Association Radio. That's how strongly I believe and feel about Topo Chico. Okay, so I'm going to play some music, and when I get back, we're going to look at what Facebook is up to. You don't want to miss this. Facebook and Google, you don't want to miss what they're up to. Technology, isn't it great? Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Okay, why don't we play? How about? Let's see. How about John Trudell? Send a little love towards John Trudell. John's not doing too well physically. John's struggling a bit. So if you know of John Trudell, you've heard him on the show a couple times. He's a great American. He's a great human. Send him a little love and just have a positive thought for John right now. This is Grassfire. This is about, this is a song where John is essentially, I wouldn't say pleading, but he's really cheering on the legalization of marijuana and hemp. I'll be back in 4 minutes and 3 seconds. You're listening to the Friday FARcast.
In between the blues, there are good days and bad days, with everything and nothing to lose. While the setting sun never sits, and the night has no limits. The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grassfire, my DNA needs THC.
Grassfire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns. Like a grass fire.
In the unnatural society, been trying to maintain, while the sane appear to be clearly insane, with no way to explain. Outlasting the great lie, a sparking spark does my mind. Grassfire, pulling the sky, breathing in sativa's design.
Grassfire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns. It's a grassfire.
dealing with the unnatural reality. They need to see. They need to be. Grassfire, my DNA needs THC. Dreaming of long times past, all that those times brought, looking to the heart of tomorrow. Grassfire, any world that yearns, that's the way this fire burns.
That was John Trudell, Grassfire, and a big hug goes out to our friend John out in San Francisco. John, get better fast. You are loved, and you know that. You're listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. We're going to have Jeremiah and Alder joining us here in about 23 minutes. We're going to be talking about Shapeshifting and their film that they're working on called Do You Shift? And they have a fundraiser coming up, and John Perkins, the man who wrote the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, is going to be at their fundraiser. Should get John Perkins on here. Maybe we can do that. He'd be a great guest, wouldn't he? If you haven't read the book, it's must reading. John basically gets into how he and the IMF and the World Bank scammed or still scam. I don't know if the scam is still in effect. Maybe it's a different scam now. But back in the 70s and the 80s, you would have somebody elected in a place like Argentina, maybe Uruguay, maybe one of the stands somewhere, although that would have been Russia. But it would have been a third world country. Could have been an African country. Togo, Benin, Djibouti, Sierra Leone. And when a person is elected, one of the first things they do is they've got to look at the money situation, because you have to do things theoretically for the people to stay elected. You have to do nice things. You have to build roads, or you have to build hospitals, or you have to build schools. Sometimes you have to go fight another war. Maybe you just fought a war and you need to pay the people back that you got the arms and the munitions from. So in comes a guy like John Perkins. Hey, how's it going? Hey, we got you some money here. You know, IMF, the International Monetary Fund, we're here to help you. And of course, 8 times out of 10, the guys that run these governments are corrupt. They're incapable of actually running a country, let alone running a taco stand. And the next thing you know, they have pissed everything away, or perhaps they've been tempted, or perhaps they've been bribed, or whatever. Maybe they are competent and they've been compromised, but all of a sudden that money's gone, because that's how it works. The money's gone. Maybe sometimes the money just gets stolen, taken from inside, ripped off. Well, now what? Now he's got to go back to John Perkins or another version of John Perkins and say, hey, I didn't do so well. We're almost out of money. And Perkins will say, hey, no problem, We'll forgive your debt. How's that sound? And not only that, but we'll give you a little stipend on a quarterly basis to keep things going till you get back on your feet again. We're going to forgive your debt. And the guy says, really? Clueless leader says, really? And Perkins or somebody like him says, yeah, all you have to do is just sign your resources over to us for perpetuity and vote a certain way at the UN when we ask you to. It's fine. faced with the lynching of the people that live in the country because all the money's gone, or staying in power and just looking the other way when ConAgra or United Fruit or Monsanto or Standard Oil come barreling into town, start ripping things up, taking things away, moving people off their land. If you're okay with that and look the other way, hey, that's how it works. Because now that country is owned and the resources are owned for perpetuity. And that's how the game worked. Still does to some extent, although the game has changed. So Perkins, that was his job. People have been talking about the birds. I got a lot of birds here. You hear them? Let's have a bird moment. That's nature. That's not dead air. That's live air. That's living air. Birds are amazing. You know, I have the door to the studio open here, and there's a bird that comes by in the mornings, and I'm not sure if it's trying to connect with my cats or mess with my cats. I'm not sure. But this one little bird comes over every morning and checks in on the cats to see how the cats are doing. It's a fascinating relationship, and my cats have never been outside. They've been indoor cats, so their only exposure to the outdoors has been the patio. So what is Facebook up to? Well, Facebook is always coming up with new and unique ways to garner information. So there is a new app that they have, or a new, and what this app does, you can install it onto your phone, like Shazam. Does anybody know what Shazam is? Shazam is an app where you can hit a button, hold up your phone, and after about 20 seconds, if a song is playing, it will tell you what the song is and who is the artist. I actually met the creator of Shazam back in 2002 in Germany, and I thought it was one of the coolest and best things I've ever seen. Basically what they do is they take music and they record music, and each track has a unique acoustic fingerprint. And I have no doubt that YouTube and Google use Shazam to identify what tracks are played in any number of songs that get played on a YouTube video. And that's why you get warnings. That's how they're able to identify the songs, acoustic fingerprints. So Facebook has now created a new app, and this is from Consumerist. It says, do you want all your Facebook friends to know exactly which song you're listening to whenever you post something online? How about which TV show you've got on in the background? What's that? You do want to tell the world these things, but you don't feel like going through the onerous task of having to type this info out? Then the newest feature for Facebook's mobile apps is up your oversharing alley. Before anyone freaks out, the Facebook app isn't actively listening to the background noise and reporting back. That's what they say. No, it's an opt-in service that lets you press a button when you're posting a status update, triggering a Shazam-like audio matching search that, if successful, will let your friends know you are listening to Muskrat Love or watching a rerun of the Steve Wilkos show. But once you do opt in, the Facebook app will try searching for audio every time you post a subsequent status update. Interesting. So the company says you can just toggle the search off by pressing the new audio bars icon that indicates whether a search is being done. The new feature will be rolling out to both iOS and Android devices in the coming weeks. Of course, whatever info you share with your Facebook friends is also presumably being collected and scraped by the Facebook computers that can use the aggregated data it receives to do its own market research and make some money by selling the info to others. So theoretically, that app is not listening to you. forgive me, but I am just a little cynical. Google, on the other hand, wants to do something quite unique. Google's always pushing that early adopter envelope. Here's what Google wants to do. This is from the Mail Online, a respected English website. In your car, on your watch, and even in your fridge, Google reveals plans to put its ads everywhere. Google has revealed it is planning to show ads to generate revenue on everything from car dashboards to watches. The search giant was forced to outline the plan in a December letter to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The search giant said it could be serving ads and other content on refrigerators, car dashboards, thermostats, glasses, and watches, just to name a few possibilities. Google made the statement to help justify why it shouldn't disclose revenue generated from mobile devices. The SEC requested the information, but Google argued that it doesn't make sense to break out mobile revenue since the definition of mobile will continue to evolve as more smart devices roll out. So they were kind of forced, right? Their hand was forced because they don't want to disclose mobile income because it's not a static business model, right? It's evolving. Google announced a $3.2 billion deal in January to buy Nest Labs, a startup known for smart thermostats and smoke detectors. Nest tried to calm fears that customer data would be shared with Google, possibly for the purposes of targeted ads. Writing in a company blog, when the deal was announced that its privacy policy limits the use of customer information to provide and improving Nest products and services. So the Nest thermostat allows you to control your heating from anywhere in the world, and over time learns your habits and adapts to suit. Google confirmed it had no plans to show ads on the gadget yet. Google was today trying to clarify the statements to confirm Nest would not show ads. And then why would they buy that company for $3.2 billion if they're not showing ads? I'll tell you what they are doing. They are collecting personal information. When are you home? Right? Because if you're home, that means that a whole other series of advertising and marketing options become available to other people. When are you not home? Where's the pattern? How much time do you spend at home? If you are using your thermostat a lot, perhaps you might need some other thermostat-related things. They may not put ads in there, but they will certainly be more than happy to sell your habits and your patterns to online marketers and offline as well. So Google says, we are in contact with the SEC to clarify the language in this 2013 filing, which does not reflect Google's product roadmap, it said. Nest, which we acquired after this filing was made, does not have an ads-based model and has never had any such plans. But Google, the cat's out of the bag because they have had to disclose this to the SEC. They're going to use just about anything in their power in order to derive revenue. So they have a watch that they're building as well, the Google Watch, and it will be connected to the tablet and the Google Glass, and we're just going to be androids. We're just slowly, but probably not so slowly. We're mediumly or moderately evolving into androids, robots, right before our very eyes. We're probably already there from an emotional or consciousness level. I'm going to talk about something quickly here before we get the second part of our show going, and that is the rise of what I would call snitch culture in this country. And a lot of it has, I think, been exacerbated by the internet and social media and thinking that you are private when you're not. You're more anonymous than you are private most of the time. And I think that this behavior, I think it's a form of behavior modification. And I think it's spilling over into people's lives so that people have more or less a compunction now to share information about another person that might be detrimental to that person if they felt like it would achieve some end, or maybe not even achieve an end at all, that they've just been conditioned and programmed to do it. I'll give you a case in point. Let's say there was somebody you moderately trusted, and you shared something with them, and then the next thing you know, a third party is coming back to you and asking you about what you said, even if that thing wasn't inflammatory, which happened to me recently, by the way. And I didn't even mention the third party. This is happening, and people are being indoctrinated and programmed into being a snitch culture. And it has, I think, everything to do with the internet and the notion that we are anonymous or private, right? There's secrets, and people are bullied or harassed or pilloried on the internet. I just read a story, whether it's true or not, about a young woman who did a porn film, and her high school friends found out about it. Stuck a shotgun in her mouth and killed herself because they decided to harass her online. Now, that may be true. It might have happened. Maybe it was not a false flag. Not everything is a false flag. But it speaks to kind of where we are. People have lost touch with their humanity. They certainly have lost touch with privacy. But they, I guess, haven't lost touch with anonymity yet. Anonymity is a joke, by the way. It's a total joke. But I think that's what's happening. We are being conditioned into being a snitch culture. Isn't that what the communists did? Didn't they just condition everybody to snitch on everyone else? That somehow there was some kind of, I don't know, moral, it was like a moral colonic or something. All of a sudden you felt so much better about yourself. Ooh, I just outed somebody. Anyway, we are here. It is 7 to the top of the hour. It is 1 o'clock, almost. And the birds are still here. The lovely birds. The lovely, lovely birds. Hear them? Great stuff. Yes. So I'm having a random Skype communication. Listen to that bird. I'm just going to do a whole hour, just the birds. You won't have to listen to me. Listen to that. That's a proud bird, isn't it? That's a bird that's happy to be alive. That's a bird that's out there singing its song. There is no self-consciousness in that bird. That bird is not worried that some other bird is going to snitch on it because its song is too loud or too boisterous, right? Am I right? You're listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix, and no, I'm not going off on Gemini again. I'm not going off on Gemini. I wonder if they have a Shazam for birds. What do you think? Do you think that that's possible? Do you think they have a phone app where I can just hold the phone up and it's going to tell me what bird that is that's singing? Now that's an app. That is an app right there. Am I right? What would you name that app? I'm not getting all bent out of shape. God, some people, man. No, that's an app. All right, hey, let's get into the shape-shifting piece. All right. I believe our guests here are Alder and Jeremiah, who are the producers of Do You Shift? All right, so let's everybody shift their attention. Let's everybody shift their focus. Let's everybody shift their consciousness from the birds to our guests. Here we go. Hello there.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hey, good. Is this Alder and Jeremiah?
Yes, it is.
Hi, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Do you guys have last names?
Jeremiah Kaner and
Alder Sherwood.
Jeremiah Kaner and Alder Sherwood. So just to set the stage, Derek Fargo reached out to me a few weeks back and told me about you guys and thought you would be a good guest. And I said, sure, let's have you on. And so I wanted to kind of, give people some background on the film, Do You Shift, and how the idea came about and what your roles are, kind of where you are in production. How does that sound?
Wonderful.
Okay.
So we, kind of our background is we're filmmakers. We usually make dramas and comedies, and we went through our own spiritual transformation and was just looking what's more out there for human potential and for ourselves. And so we came across this book on shape-shifting by John Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
Shape-shifting, it's global techniques for, shamanic techniques for global and personal transformation, and we were blown away by it. And we loved the book. It described his shape-shifting in the Amazon, and specifically with the Shuar tribe in Ecuador. And he witnessed shape-shifting, and we decided to kind of try it ourselves. And personally, we spent some time working on the methods of shape-shifting, and we wanted to make this film. It took us about 2 years to be brave enough to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we, to put ourselves out there in that way, because you go to film events and you're like, we're doing a documentary on shape-shifting, and they're like, documentary? Is that's not real, that's science fiction, but it is real. And we've been interviewing people, and we've witnessed shape-shifting. We've seen it in so many cultures, and it's just kind of an underground shifter group of people.
So this is an actual sort of practice now that people are partaking in, and that's interesting. It's a whole new subculture. When you were down in the Amazon and you were working on this, did you actually change form, or did you feel as though the energy of an animal, and I think we're talking animal here, entered into you and you actually became the animal? Where did you take this? How did it manifest?
Well, we actually are scheduled to be going down to the Amazon in August with John Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't made it down there yet. But he has actually witnessed shape-shifting. We in the U.S. here, we got the opportunity to witness a few different shifters. One of them was kind of the turning point for me personally. Was a turning point of kind of going all in with this, and it was a very private ordeal with the people. They didn't want us filming, which was interesting because some of the people that were in the group were very highly renowned people in the community. And so when we went in there, it was very kind of closed off, and it was very personal experience for everybody. And the woman that was in this kind of doing the event, I want to call it like a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
She was an older woman. She had MS, and she was walking with a cane, and she was going to be taking on the energy of a goddess. It was I want to say it was one of the Celtic goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
So as she was sitting there speaking to the group of about maybe 30 to 50 people, I can't remember. It was quite a bit of people in this kind of a lodge type building. All of a sudden, she was not working not walking with her cane. She had put it down, and pretty soon she was like walking very straight and everything. And then the next thing we knew, she just dropped right into this trance, and her face, literally, like her skin, like just kind of tightened up and everything, and she looked like she had just turned into from somebody that was in her late 70s, like right into somebody that was like 40 years old. And her hair still stayed silver, but like it was just, her face completely like shifted. And we got to go, and everybody took a turn walking in a clockwise circle around her, and then taking a blessing out of a pouch that was in around her neck. And her eyes, when we each took a turn to go up there, her eyes were literally just like altering colors, like shifting colors throughout blue, green, brown. It was just the filmmaker part of me was trying to like comprehend it, and it's one of those moments where your brain just isn't adding point A to point B because it's not understanding it.
Right.
And we literally, after that, we sat in the car and we were just kind of quiet. We didn't even know what to comprehend of what just happened. And at that point, I was just like, I want to do this documentary. I'm all in on this one.
So she did not assume. I mean, most people that I know correlate shape-shifting with becoming an animal, right? I mean, they shift into a wolf or a dog or a cat or a crow or something like that. So your definition of shape-shifting is a little more fluid. Am I right?
Exactly. I think most of the shifters we've come across are animal shifters. They're all around the world. In Europe, there's a lot of wolf shifters. In Brazil, there's the dolphin. They're just all over. But however, there's other ways to shift, and there's the definition of shapeshifter. There's physical shifting, which is a small percent. But there's taking on the energy or the spirit of an animal. So if you want to run really fast in the jungle, you can take on the energy of a cheetah. Or there's also shifters that shift in the astral dream world, a lot of them. And so they're able to take on different forms and go in the astral world or even in other people's dreams. And you can take on the energy of like a goddess, or you can take on the elements. You can be a fire shifter, water shifter. That's where it gets really cool. It's like there's so much available to humanity that we don't even realize. And I think that this is, back with the 4-minute mile, I talk about this. We didn't know we could do the 4-minute mile back in the 50s. And then all of a sudden the first person did the 4-minute mile, and then after that another person did it a year later, and now kids are doing it in high school. And I think it's just we don't know what we're capable of.
I would agree with that. It sounds to me like the event that you are detailing here, it sounds to me a little like Candomblé or Umbanda, one of the possession cult religions from Brazil. It sounds very much like that. Have you guys made any connections to those spiritual practices to what you're talking about?
No, we haven't. We do have a filmmaker friend in Brazil, so we're hoping to go there. But as far as religious cult connection, no, I don't know about that.
Well, they're offshoots of Santeria, right, in Voodoo, West African religions that were brought over from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We do have some contacts there, also in Belize. So, yeah, we've received a lot of information from people. It's amazing. Once we put our Facebook page out there, people have come forward, and a lot of them don't want to be on camera, or they just want to give us information, or they want to talk with us. And I can't tell you the amount of people that have given us their own shape-shifting experiences, and they're mostly when they were children. They're like, I was a child, and I was down by the water, and I became a salamander for, a little bit. There are things that they never told anyone before. And that's just what blows me away, is that there's people that have stories in their past and they don't realize that they're real. It's part of, they don't know if it's their imagination, and it's nice to be able to come out with this and bring it up as a discussion, because then people will
it gives
kind of
people
validate.
A platform to like feel okay and free to like open up about things that normally they either didn't understand about themselves or they were afraid other people wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys into astrology at all?
Yes.
Well, currently...
We aren't experts. We're definitely into it and understand it a bit.
Well, currently, Chiron is in Pisces and will be for a while. And this is a kind of a chironic Piscean phenomena that you're talking about in some ways on a couple of different levels. First of all, Pisces is very malleable, right? It can be anything. It's everything and nothing. It's all form and the formless. It's the 12th sign. It's spiritual, but it's also the sign of the great scoundrels and the great manipulators. So there's a lot going on with Pisces, and it's also a mutable sign, so it's changeable, right? And that's what you're talking about with shapeshifting, is being mutable and changing. But you're also in this chironic piece with Pisces. It's also about talking about and coming forward with these Piscean experiences that people have when they're young, and exactly what you're talking about, which is kind of the multidimensional nature of life, or a strange kind of spirituality that may not fit into a box. So I feel like what you're kind of tapping into in the current of the times is this Chiron and Pisces moment. And of course, Neptune is also in Pisces as well. And you guys are doing a film, which is a very Piscean medium. So it feels like you're kind of in there with some of the current astrological trends. And I think today, I'm not sure if it's shifted yet, but today the moon started off in Pisces. So there's a little Pisces connection for you.
Nice.
Well, we also found out about shape-shifting that through our studies and meditations and finding out about this, is that shape-shifting isn't just about shape-shifting into another form or something else. It's actually realizing that you're all of that. So you're able to shape-shift into all of you, because we only have a small perspective of what we're capable of and who we are, and that we're much more than that. And so it's not shifting; it's becoming more yourself.
Yeah, a lot of the shamanistic shifters and stuff believe that to shift, what they do is they basically get out of the preconceived box that most people are in, and they're able to step into their full potential, which is like a connectivity to everything, to all nature, to all the animals, and once you realize that, then it's just it's anything's possible for you, and we've started realizing that especially in the Western culture, these preconceived notions of how we're raised, basically, of what is possible, what we're supposed to do, it's almost like a box that we're put in our life of, you grow up, you go to school, you do this to become successful, to have a house, to have a family, to eventually be successful in the eyes of our society. And then it's just kind of a cookie cutter society where everybody's striving for the exact same thing, and they don't see anything outside of that box. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly when like that moment when we saw that woman shift and take on that goddess form, at that moment for me, that was a perception just being completely opened up, and having that preconceived idea of how life is and what life is supposed to be, it was completely shattered.
Right.
And I realized there's so much more, and that's when I got excited. I wanted to know, and I've, in meditation and stuff, I've worked a lot trying to kind of take in other energies and stuff, and I've been able to project myself, but one experience that we had that was actually really amazing with somebody taking on the energy of another animal, of an actual animal who they projected to us. We had an interview with a gentleman, this Aztec tribe, and they had invited us down to join their practice for a ceremony. And it was, I think, 3 or 4 weeks prior to that, we were filming where we wanted him to come up and be part of the filming, but he wasn't able to make it. Mm-hmm. So he didn't tell us this or anything. This was the crazy part. But he had meditated that day that we were filming, and basically said he was praying and sending the coyote spirit and the spirit of his ancestors down to bless the film shoot and everything, and he literally stayed away. And during the film shoot, we were Alder and I were actually pulling out to drive up to the production office, and lo and behold, there's a coyote just like 100 feet away from the car.
Wow.
And this coyote was looking at us and then spins around in a circle one way, spins around in a circle in another way, and hops twice forward, and then stopped and looked at us. And then it did it again, the exact same movement, spun one way, spun the other way, and then hopped twice and stopped and looked at, almost like it was taunting us to come play.
Right.
And we didn't say anything to Alejandro, the guy that we went and interviewed weeks later, but we went down there, interviewed him, and he told us that he was trying to send the coyote, and we were like, oh my God, this is crazy, because this is amazing that this is what we saw. And then they proceeded to go to do their practice for their ceremony.
Yeah.
And all of them, that was the dance that they were doing. That's one of their main moves in their dance. They spin in a circle one direction, spin in a circle the other direction, take 2 steps forward towards the altar, and then come back. And they do it repetitively over and over.
Well, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah, it was something that just gives you shivers when you experience something like that. It just the hairs on your neck stand up, and you get all excited and giddy, and it's things like that. So there's so many aspects of shape-shifting that people can use, and things that we don't even know that's out there. And in other cultures over in Europe, one thing that I've found that is kind of fascinating is shape-shifting is just an accepted practice in Europe. In some cultures, we've talked with people and friends that were from Bolivia and stuff that we wanted to talk to about shape-shifting and stuff, and they're like, oh yes, my grandmother, she practiced shape-shifting, or it's just it's no big deal. It is just the way it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
well, Bolivia and then also Bulgaria in Europe.
And Bulgarian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would have been really cool if that coyote stopped and got up on his hind legs and raised a paw and looked at you and said, "Got shift." Wouldn't that have been cool?
That would have been awesome.
That would melt your head, I think, right? Interesting stuff.
Well, in Ecuador, John Perkins and a number of people, and we're talking with people that have went with him on his expeditions, they shapeshift into anaconda, jaguar, and trees and bats. That's kind of, so different areas have different animals according to what's there.
Even South Africa, it has jackals and hyena shapeshifters.
Interesting. Well, I think that Washington D.C. has jackal shapeshifters as well. This is great stuff. Let me ask you a question. Some people from the outside looking in, let's say they have a strong Christian upbringing, they would view this as being the work of the devil. This is a possession cult. You can't trust this. How would you answer those critics and allay their fears if you were so predisposed?
You want to take it, Alder?
Sure. We've actually came across that already a few times. We're both from Christian upbringings and have since kind of went our own direction, but I think that for us, it all has to do with your intention, and our intention and the shifters that we've came across is their intention is for love, to love themselves and to love the world and to be all that you can be as a human being. And I think that when you just go to those fundamentals, that you're doing something to be part of love and all encapsulating love, I think that there's not really much you can say against it.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing to me that says like the shape-shifting concept of using shape-shifting in shamanism and all around the world is like no matter where you look in the world, there's the one really underlining idea of why they use shape-shifting, and it's for healing society or tribe actually, which in like modern day it would be more society, but healing society or tribe or moving it into like the next step that it needs to be, like people need to be in to make it through. Say there's a hardship coming through a tribe, and then they would actually use the techniques of shape-shifting to kind of alter the tribe to be able to survive and move on to the next level. To it's kind of hard to explain. The next step in life, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always there. It's always like, I guess, quote, evolving the tribe or the society around you to become better. And that's
Now,
I found kind of strange that like no matter if you're looking at the Aborigine or looking at the African tribal people or even South American, like it's all the same use. It's what they use it for, and so there's got to be it all originates from someplace.
That's true. I would say that that's true. And I would also say that there are, within indigenous circles, both light and dark applications.
Yes.
Tapping into this alternative realm. And because what we're really talking about here is a form of magic. These tribal societies, if a person was to apprentice, and by the way, not everybody would apprentice with the bruja or the shaman or the sangoma. It would only be one or two people, because not everybody needed to be or wanted to be the storyteller or the witch doctor or the healer. So here we're talking about it on a collective level or on a much larger scale. But at the same time, those apprentices were put through a number of tests, and they were tempered, and their spiritual conviction and their hearts were forged because of the fact that they needed to act in the best interest of the tribe and not the self. And how does this come through in what you're experiencing and what you're exploring? What is the spiritual side versus the phenomenological side of this?
Well, I think that for us, it's all spiritual because everything is energy and we're all spirit. And I think in quantum physics we find that out, that matter can turn into particles and waves. And I think that the potential is in all of us. It's extremely hard to do. I'm going to say that it takes a lot of practice because we are pre-programmed, and if you come across biology, a belief that our biology and genetics is sometimes determined by our belief, and our beliefs are so strong that it controls our whole body. So you have to figure out a way, be it through probably someone who's experienced in it, to undo those beliefs and undo your preconceived notions. And so having, a shaman or a leader in a tribe or in the Wiccans, they have different type of leaders or to pass down the sacred information is one way to go. But I think we all have access to it. There's so much information out there.
Yeah, I guess my question is how does one temper the ability to engage in shape-shifting while at the same time, for lack of a better term, holding a moral center, or at least having the sense that what
actually
they're
a good question, and I think it's all about intent. Like, to be honest, like your intent, because that's another thing in that we've learned is like shape-shifting. People that want to learn how to like physically shift and stuff as well. It's all about having like setting your intent. And the one interesting thing is you talked about like kind of a dark side of things and stuff. There are shifters out there that are kind of more of a darker aspect of shape-shifting, which is interesting. There's a tribe. Actually, I'm probably not going to name it for you because we're going to be interviewing both aspects of the tribe. But there's a Native American tribe that is well known for shape-shifting. Now they have two separate groups that are shapeshifters, and one of them they believe are the natural-born shifters, and then there's another group that's a very taboo group that that's kind of shunned away from the rest of the nation, and that's because they believe that the group has gained the ability to shapeshift and stuff through the dark arts and through like animal sacrifice and blood sacrifice and stuff, and they frown upon that. So there is the darker side of shapeshifting, like you said. There's kind of like the part that a lot of the people like may question is like being demonic or something. So it's a fine balance of navigating through it, but for the most part, we've learned that the intent of all these shamanistic shapeshifters, even to the corporate level, like we've met with people that are CEOs and stuff of massive corporations that have discovered the concept of shapeshifting through spirituality and stuff, and then they took that to their corporations and were able to shift their corporations from eco-damaging corporations to eco-friendly corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just became their passion, as they became like literally corporate shifters, just changing corporations into something that benefited the world instead of destroying it.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. We're talking with Alder and Jeremiah, producers of Do You Shift, a film that is currently in production and hoping to get finished by when?
We are shooting to be finished with production around December of 2014, and then we'll be in post-production for a few months, and we would love to be out of post-production and have it released by April of 2015.
And you guys have an event coming up with John Perkins, is that right, or has that happened already?
Yeah, we're having an event. It's in Seattle at the Longhouse, Duwamish Longhouse, on June 14th, and it's so exciting. I mean, he was our inspiration for the film, and he agreed to speak at our event, and he speaks all over the world, so he's super busy. So we're very excited that he's taking part in this, and he's talking about how to shapeshift and his experiences shapeshifting in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm. And this is a fundraiser for the film as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're raising funds to go on the trip to Ecuador, and that's the main purpose of the event, and then any leftover will go towards the rest of the film. I mean, we have a huge wish list of places to go, but for the most part, if we can narrow it down to 3, we've gotten a lot of interviews already in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to do a few more.
Mm-hmm.
We
What
could do it
about
forever. It just goes endlessly, but we'll put a stop to it at the end of the year.
what about are you guys using Indiegogo or any of the crowdfunding sites?
Not at this time. We potentially could in the future, but we have used them before in the past. But in some ways, the marketing on this is a little different. It's very niche group of people, and so we're just kind of figuring out how the marketing, funding, and distribution work in the non-traditional film methodology. And for us, we've had other films out. We had a film out called Time Travel Zero about John Titor and time travel, and that was a little different. So we kind of went down that route before, but it wasn't at this level of funding, you know.
So you guys did a movie about John Titor?
Yep.
So what was that like? I mean, did you come away with the fact that he was real and the whole thing is real, or is it an elaborate hoax? Or what was your take on his story?
I'll give you this on it. By the time we were done filming and into 2009, after it had just released and everything, I questioned the whole idea, because I moved into it originally as a producer thinking this was the greatest hoax in the whole wide world, and I just was in awe of it. And we filmed in 2005, and by the time we released it, like, I can honestly say, like, I don't know. You know what? It there's a good chance that it might not have been a hoax, just because of our experience of kind of getting into it. Like, people opened up to us on that film, and basically, like, a lot of people opened off camera too. And spoke about stuff that, like, would just make you not want to know stuff. It was just like, it was very crazy. And these were like government officials and stuff like that, and like people that worked through IBM, and people that were scientists and stuff. And it was just like kind of mind-boggling, like what people will open up and give you information about when they're excited about a topic as well. They just don't want the name wrapped around it because they're highly regarded. So they're like, just let's keep it quiet. This is between us. So
weird things just happened when we were filming, and people contacting us, telling us all sorts of stuff. And I don't know. There's just things that are unexplainable. You know, I really felt like, okay, so the timeline, there's waves of the timeline, and it seems like when you're dealing with a topic like this, it feels like the timeline's changing as you're doing it. It is so bizarre, but we came out of that just like with more questions than answers, because things just switched around for us so fast. We got worldwide distribution. People from Italy came out and interviewed us. We on the Art Bell show. All sorts of things happened, but in doing that, we just came across a lot of evidence that time travel is possible.
So once you get into it, the anomalies began to present themselves, right?
Yes. It's just almost like believing in the topic or being part of it. Once you commit to it, I think it's all about intent. Yeah, things change in the timeline. Things that were one way one day change. You know, and you can't explain it.
No, I understand it. What's the name of the Titor film again?
Time Travel Zero. It's Time Travel _0. It was his handle.
And where can people watch that if they want to see it?
You can actually get it on Amazon. Our distribution company has it on there. I think that's the easiest way to get it.
So they can find your film. Do you have any other films on Amazon that people should know about?
Not on Amazon, no.
Okay. One of the things, and we'll get back to shapeshifting in a moment, because I'm fascinated by Titor. One of the things that I found interesting was when the first, chat room discussions theoretically came up, there was a lot of talk about CERN, and I thought, based on that point in time, and knowing about CERN, and knowing about what they were up to before, a lot of other people were even clued in with CERN, I thought was kind of a big piece of evidence. Did you guys feel that way at all?
We didn't kind of dive into that part of it of him as much.
The IBM 5100?
The IBM, wait, it was a 5100, wasn't it? I think it was an IBM 5100.
And you had to go back in time to get it because it had a Unix or something, right, in it?
Yeah. And that was
reverse binary capability, so it could go back and forth, and it was only a computer that had that at the time, and then it just disappeared. It disappeared from the museum, and we actually contacted the museum.
We had one of the big wigs at IBM contact us, and he's like, I feel like I want to speak out on this, and he's like, it has to stay off the books though. But he's like, you guys need to know the truth. And this was just it was kind of crazy, but he just started talking about the IBM 5100 and everything that kind of went down during when it was made and why it was taken off the shelf right away, and the fact that it's the one computer that is not in the IBM museum, and that everybody at IBM kind of just doesn't talk about it. It's like a hush, don't ask, don't tell type
That's
thing.
what John came back to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, theoretically.
So you have John Teeter and John Perkins. Any other interesting Johns that are influencing your cinephile lives there?
I know, it's kind of a interesting correlation there, like this, or the fact that they're both Johns. Every once in a while, I'll be talking to somebody, I'll get the last names mixed up.
Yeah. Let's get back to the shape-shifting piece. A lot of times with shape-shifting, entheogens, psychedelics are part of the journey. Have you guys found that that's true, or do people actually engage in the shape-shifting without the use of psychotropic drugs? What's the mix, 50-50, 60-40? Does it matter?
Yes, definitely the psychedelic drugs are a part of it a lot in our research, but it isn't 100%. But I think that a lot of times the psychedelic drugs is a way to, what we were talking about before, change your preconceived notions and your perceptions, because once you can do it that way, you kind of opens the window for you to be able to do it on your own. So a lot of the tribes do ayahuasca. And what there's a man, Graham Hancock, that has a book out, Fingerprints of the Gods, and a number of books, and he's interviewed a number of people around the world that have done ayahuasca or similar type medicine, as they call them. And what he found out is he had people draw pictures after they were out of the ayahuasca trip or journey, and what he found is they were drawing similar things, like a woman, I think a spider woman, and different things in different continents, and they weren't connected to each other. And what fascinates me is, are they going to another level of consciousness collectively where it's kind of like another dimension or another space? And a lot of the people look kind of like alien-like that they drew. And so they're able to shapeshift in that world, but they're also able to visit another world, I believe.
Right. Well, that kind of gets into what Terence McKenna would do when he would take, enormous amounts of mushrooms or smoke some DMT.
Yeah.
He would go into those very strange alternative universes. Where does the consciousness of the person that's doing the shape-shifting go? Is it a blend? Do they leave their experience? Is it a mixture of the two? What have you guys found around that?
We've actually kind of found a little bit of a mixture, but the one kind of main idea or action that we've noticed is the easiest shapeshift is people actually kind of moving their consciousness into another entity, another animal or whatnot, and so that shows that they'll be in meditation, and the next thing they know they'll be projecting themselves into an animal's body or even into somebody else's dream or whatnot, and I think that's probably the easiest shapeshift that people do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about consciousness. That you've hit the key on this, because as we become more conscious and out of our egos and in the small aspect of ourselves, we're able to shapeshift more. It's all about becoming conscious. And as we look at animals, they aren't judging themselves or thinking about themselves. They're just here and now in this time. And as we're able to become more conscious, we're able to access that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Some of my, I've been thinking about it, and some of my favorite films actually have very strong shape-shifting elements in them. Are you guys familiar with any shape-shifting movies?
Well, yeah, in pop culture, there's all sorts of shape-shifting. It's the X-Men, and even in old TV, it's the Munsters, and in Grimm right now, they're shape-shifting. And we're fascinated with it through all sorts of mythology, up through pop culture. Our society, we know we're shapeshifters. And I also want to mention that even with the Twilight series, they're shape-shifting into wolves, but that tribe, the Quilly tribe, they believe that they shape-shifted from wolves to humans, and there's a number of Northwest tribes that also have shape-shifted from animals into humans, and hence, we all have shape-shifting background or ability.
There's a movie called The Emerald Forest, and it's with Powers Booth, and he plays an American contractor down in the Amazon. It's actually based on a true story, whose son had been abducted by one of the native tribes in the area, and he spent roughly about 8 years looking for his son in the Amazon, and he finally found him, and he'd become an adopted member of the tribe and the whole 9 yards. So there's a fictionalized version of this story, and in the story, one of the things that he does is he gets hit in the nostril with some abena, right, and then he takes on the spirit of, I think, an eagle or one of the jungle birds. It's actually a pretty pivotal scene in the movie. But it's a cool movie. If you haven't seen it, and especially if you're going to the Amazon, you might find that enjoyable. So we're talking with Alder and Jeremiah here, and they're the producers of Do You Shift? Are there any other salient details that you guys want to share with your experience, or some of the, some cool stories you want to talk about while we still have you on the air here?
I think for me, just the message that we're getting out in this film is to just try to think of things in a new way, and that shape-shifting or there's so much more possible for humanity. I think one of the steps is just to try new things every day. I know it sounds really simple, but it's just starting with, hey, I'm going to sit in a different place at the dinner table. I'm going to choose all new groceries when I go out. I don't know, just different things. And you start that creative muscle, and then you start choosing things different ways, and you open yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible for anyone.
Yeah, breaking the routine, breaking the habit, breaking the pattern, shifting one's kind of daily awareness is always a good place to start. Jeremiah, anything else you want to add today while you're here?
Just that I hope with this film is we open up people's perspective, kind of like I've learned a lot in my lifetime, because I kind of grew up with a very, very strict religious background, and it took me quite a few years to kind of break out of that mindset. I mean, even after I had gone on my own journey and my own search for spirituality and stuff on a private level, it took years for me to mentally kind of get out of the preconceived box that I grew up with. And so that's kind of what my main want for the audience is to find is kind of breaking that ideal of what is, and discovering what is out there and what we are capable of, what we can do and what we can become, what we can make our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I have a quick question here, and this pertains to maybe the science of shape-shifting. Have you guys worked with anybody that's into the neurosciences or neurobiology to see if there's actually physical or biological correlations that they can track with shape-shifting?
That is on our agenda, actually. I talked to somebody that's interesting you brought that up because recently I just talked with somebody that is heavy into neuroscience, mm-hmm. And he was telling me that he's like, in theory, he's like, it's completely possible. He's like, in theory and everything, he's like, all the way down to a cellular level, he's like, it is completely possible for us to shift into whatever we want to be. He's like, so it would be amazing to like literally put connect some shaman up or to some machines and watch this happen on a cellular level as they shift or take on the energy. And it's like that. Yeah, that would be the ultimate thing to observe. Like having that, talking to somebody or talking someone into doing that is a whole nother story. But
yeah,
but it was interesting. Yeah, it was just talking to him though about that. To see that he was open to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that would actually, if somebody wanted to do that for their PhD or something like that, that would be kind of an amazing to do. What about some of the old psychonauts, people like John Lilly? Do you know who John Lilly is?
I don't know who John Lilly is.
You guys should watch the movie Altered States, because there's a very strong shape-shifting element to that movie, and it's based on the life of John Lilly. You might actually find that to be quite interesting. And Lilly, from what I know, he's part of the Lilly pharmaceutical family, so he has tons of reserves. And he was kind of a contemporary of Tim Leary's, but coming at it from a bit of a different perspective. And the stories I heard about him and where he is now aren't that great, but I mean, I don't know where he is with his mental faculties, but he's a fascinating guy, and Altered States is definitely worth checking out. It was directed by Ken Russell. It's one of his best films, and William Hurt stars in it. And there's a very powerful shape-shifting element to that movie in case you guys want to explore another cinematic version of shape-shifting.
Yeah,
I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, well, you two have been a delight, and you sound really fresh and eager, and you have a lot of you're open, and I think that bodes well for your exploration and your discovery around shape-shifting. I wish you all the best, and you guys think you're going to have this ready to go in springtime, maybe?
Yep, that's the goal.
And we also have a YouTube channel out there, so we're tracking our progress and putting up YouTube videos as we're in the jungle and all our different experiences. So if people want to check that out until we release the big film, and we'll do little teaser trailers and things.
So Do You Shift? You can follow that page and like that page on Facebook, which I did today. So you can go there, and you can also go to YouTube. Do you guys have a Twitter account for your project?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And it is, I believe it's just at Do You Shift.
At Do You Shift. Okay.
I believe so.
There's 3 ways to stay in touch with Alder and Jeremiah, track their progress, and wish them well as they make this very interesting and I'm sure life-changing film. Thanks again for being on with us, and I wish you all the best, okay?
Great. Thank you
so
much. We had fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go. 2 people on the path of shapeshifting, learning, experiencing, documenting, tracking their own consciousness. This is what I love. You know, there's a school of thought with documentarians that you're supposed to be objective, and that you're just kind of watching the whole thing, right? And there's another school where the documentarian becomes part of the experience. I think Morgan Spurlock really popularized that when he did that McDonald's movie, or he ate nothing but McDonald's for 3 months. So they're part of the experiential documentarian school of filmmaking. And right on. You guys go. Alder and Jeremiah, do you shift? Find them on Facebook. We're about 14 minutes away from the end of the show. I have one last episode that is airing on Gaiam TV. If you have not seen it yet, go check it out. It is my 23rd episode, the Magic 23, One Beyond the Universe, taking me all the way back to Zero and the Fool, right back to where it all started from. And that's on Gaiam. It talks about the true node and Chiron and Saturn and the importance of all 3 in the astrological chart, as well as the tenor of the times we're in, Pluto and Capricorn, Uranus and Aries and Neptune and Pisces. You can find that. And 22 other pieces of video that I have archived over at Gaiam. You can check it out, and there's always something interesting happening over there as well. All right, so that's it. I think we have really come to the end of today's show, and I'm going to shapeshift into a father in the next couple of hours. That's going to be my next shapeshifting. I've been trying to shapeshift into a baseball coach, and I find it to be very difficult, although I love baseball. It is really a very dense structure, a very dense form. Maybe I should shapeshift into being, I don't know, a psychedelic mini golf pro or something like that. That could be easier. Okay, with that, friends and listeners, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a fantastic weekend. The moon is in Aries. You're going to feel peppy. You're going to feel alive. Put a spring in your step. Enjoy yourselves. Listen to the birds. They have no self-consciousness. They sing without any restraint. Live your lives like that for 48 hours and see how it feels. Until next time, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible, even shape-shifting. I am Robert Phoenix, and I'll be back next Friday. God bless.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.